everyone, it's Froggy, and I'm back again with another episode of Will a Wonderful World. So let's open the mailbox and let's take this one.
时间可以重来.
Strange teacher. Well, that would probably be him. So let's go ahead and start this. The last class of the day was art. I pushed open the door of the classroom and I was shocked by what I saw. What was happening? The room that usually had only a dozen people in it was now almost full. It was like a scene from a beach in the middle of summer. There wouldn't be enough easels for everyone. Just when I was wondering whether I should leave and go study, saw Jing waving me over from the front row. Why are there so many people today? I sat down at the seat Jing had saved for me. You really don't know anything, do you? Miss Liu is on her maternity leave, so we have a new substitute today. Somebody saw him earlier in the office and posted his pictures on the school BBS. He looks so handsome. I looked around, and only then did I realize that almost all of the newcomers were girls. Why was Rocky here? What was a boy doing here? I took my phone out and tried to log into the BBS. I found myself unknowingly imagining what the new handsome teacher would look like while waiting for the page to load. Well-made pink shirt, rolled up sleeves, top button unbuttoned, pale and flawless skin, impeccable face from the side. The Wi-Fi signal wasn't very strong and I couldn't look for a long time. Then the front door of the room was slowly pushed open. With everyone staring at him, the new teacher slowly walked across to the podium and softly wrote down his name on the blackboard. Wen Zhaoren. I'll be teaching the art class for the seniors starting today. I looked up him up and down and noticed that this Mr. Wen was wearing flip-flops to class. His ensemble was also included a pair of casual pants with the legs rolled up, a gray t-shirt, and a wrinkled jacket. Not just that, his chin suggested that he hadn't shaved for days. I turned to my side and whispered to Jing, "How is this old man handsome?" Jing ignored me. I looked up and realized that the teacher was staring right at me. Oh no, he must have overheard me. Suddenly Rocky raised his hand and asked loudly, "Mr. Wen, how old are you? And do you have a girlfriend?" The entire class erupted into a loud murmur. Everyone was staring at the teacher even more intensely. Thank you, Rocky, for getting me out of trouble. Mr. Wen slowly took off his jacket and laid it on the back of the chair next to him. 35. The girls immediately began whispering to each other. His response certainly had intrigued everyone even more. Rocky, however, did not seem satisfied with the answer. Mr. Wen ignored the commotion in the room and took a banana-shaped statue out of the accessory cabinet. People with an easel began to prepare their paper. The ones without one took out their sketching pads. The class was going to be over soon. Near the end of class, Mr. Wen said that he would like to pick an assistant from the class. Anybody who was interested could stand up and nominate him or herself. However, he would need to check his or her sketch. Jing stood up. How brave. Mr. Wen walked over and picked up the sketch. He shook his head and tore it in two halves. Rocky stood up from his seat. I stood up from my seat too. And then the bell rang. Jing was sobbing and I was completely in shock too. Not only did Mr. Wen tear up her sketch, he even said to her, "Are you serious? Did you seriously just draw something like that? I will not tolerate this kind of thing in my class." We were just some regular high school students. We were not in an art school. Are you serious? Rocky jumped right in front of the teacher. I tried to stop him, but it was too late. Rocky punched Mr. Wen right in the face. Mr. Wen, however, did not react despite having just been hit by a student. He simply gave Rocky a glance and walked out of the room without saying a word. Rocky, he was always so self-righteous. The only thing more important in his life might be his ball games. I bet if the bell had rung and the class had been over, he wouldn't have bothered, and would have gone off to play basketball. After that, Mr. Wen never came back to the class. Maybe somebody filed a complaint about him, or maybe... I'd always had a feeling that he didn't look like he wanted to be a teacher. The next art teacher always dressed impeccably well. He was also incredibly dull. Li Wen. Alright. Let's get the bell to ring first. Mr. Wen walked over, picked up the sketch, shook his head, tore it in two halves. Rocky stood up from his seat, I stood up from my seat too, and then the bell rang. Let's not have him do this. Let's have him pick us instead. Mr. Wen tore up Rocky's sketch and said, "Why don't you bring this to the class next time so everybody can practice with it?" Rocky's face suddenly turned into the brightest red I had ever seen. A minute ago he'd been acting like the king of the world. What did he draw exactly? Ah! He punched Mr. Wen right in the face. Mr. Wen, however, did not react despite just being hit by a student. He simply gave Rocky a glance, put down his sketch, and walked out of the room without saying a word. Since then, Mr. Wen never came back to class. Maybe somebody filed a complaint about him, or maybe... I always had a feeling that he didn't look like he wanted to be a teacher. The next teacher always dressed impeccably well, but he was also incredibly dull. Alright, so we're just gonna have the bell ring first. The bell rang. Let's try that. Jing was sobbing, and I was completely in shock too. Not only did Mr. Wen tear up her sketch, he even said to her, "Are you serious? Did you seriously just draw something like that? I will not tolerate this kind of thing in my class. We were just some regular high school students. We were not in art school. Are you serious?" Boring. Rocky picked up his basketball from under his seat, casually walked out of the classroom, and disappeared into the after-class crowd that was filing in the hallway. Other people were leaving as well, while talking with each other about what had just happened. Nobody ever mentioned picking an assistant ever again either. I walked with Jing on the track field and told her dozens of jokes until she finally felt a little better. That old man. Not only did he dress terribly, his temper was even worse. How could the school hire such a person to be a teacher? Okay, rank A. It's not good enough. Let's try this. Jing was sobbing and I was completely in shock too. Not only did Mr. Okay, we saw this. Blah, 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 blah. Seeing Jing crying like that, I couldn't control my anger. Mr. Wen! You are way out of line. You need to apologize to Jing. Mr. Wen gave me a glance and picked up my sketch. Boring. Rocky picked up his basketball from under his seat, casually walked out of the classroom, and disappeared into the after-class crowd that was filing in the hallway. Other people were leaving as well. There were fewer and fewer people left in the room. I collected my stuff into my backpack, getting ready to leave. You, stay and clean up the room. What? I stopped what I was doing and looked at Mr. Wen in disbelief. He handed my sketch back to me. After all, you're my assistant for this course now. He turned away and walked back to the front of the classroom. I then realized that everyone who was still in the room was staring at me. Everyone looked like they were gawking at a circus monkey on the street. What the hell? I had no intention of being a freaking assistant to that guy. Jing put her arm around my shoulder. Congratulations! Let me buy you dinner sometime, you poor kid. Haha. I burst out laughing. Well, whatever. There we go. Ew, there's more. Let's do one more. Green.
Porque siempre me pasa esto.
My sister.
내 탓이야. 바보같이.
Why are these two always linked? Oh god. Did she get kidnapped? What else we got?
这都是我的错。
In the alley
有
and
没有搞错？
poor Jimmy. Well, they're connected too. Okay, well. Let's do this then. Since I looked at it first. Okay. Hong Kong was different than what I had imagined. Back home in Mexico, everything was so colorful. But Hong Kong was just gray. Gray streets, gray buildings, gray store signs, and gray homeless people. And there was me, sitting in the middle of them, looking odd. I never knew that pesos couldn't be exchanged into Hong Kong dollars here. When I woke up, I found a few more coins by my feet. I had to take them. I must survive. None of the homeless people seemed to like me very much, perhaps because they could only get about half as many coins as I did. I had a big sister named Alicia. She was 9 years older than me. We both grew up in an orphanage in Monte Tlaloc. Can't. I try, man. It was a rural place. You had to travel 4 kilometers to get to the nearest town, Coatepec, just to make a phone call. I couldn't remember anything about my own parents. My big sister was the only person that I had in this world. 9 years ago, Alicia had left Mexico to make more money. She used to write me letters every few months. Every time the mailman came, I would get so excited to see if there was an envelope with my name on it. Even though I couldn't read much, Auntie Benita would always read them to me. Alicia didn't seem to have the easiest time, but she had seen so much of the outside world. And by reading her letters, I felt like I got to see what Alicia had seen as well. I could almost feel like I was right there with her in the big, new, interesting, and fascinating world that we had never seen before. However, we had stopped hearing from her about a year ago. Her last letter had come from Hong Kong. So I had asked Uncle Depp to find a tutor for me who could teach me how to read and speak a little of the local language. I had worked so hard to make more money for the trip. I had done all this just so I could come to Hong Kong, even though I wasn't sure if she was still in the city. Still, even if there was just the tiniest hope, I would never give up. I knew I had to find my sister and make sure that she was okay. I had arrived at Pitt Street. Pitt Street had been on the postmark of Alicia's last letter. Maybe someone nearby might have seen her. Before I left, Auntie Benita had given me an old cell phone. I pulled up a picture of Alicia on the phone. I held up the phone asking people door to door to see if they had seen my sister. I couldn't tell if they simply couldn't understand me. They would wave their hands at me every time before I had barely spoken. Almost halfway through the street, I found myself behind a huge crowd of people. Thick, dark smoke was coming out of the building nearby. People were shoving and running out of it. More and more people started to gather on the street. Many of them were even taking pictures with their phones. The fire truck had finally arrived. My cell phone suddenly rang. My cell phone fell to the ground. My cell phone was vibrating on the ground. Then it fell through the storm drain. No! The sewer water was flowing rapidly down the drain. I held onto the drain and tried my best to look down. Maybe the phone was stuck somewhere. I looked for a long time and even tried to reach in with my hand, but I couldn't get it. I was so tired, disappointed, and desperate. I couldn't pretend anymore. I fell to the ground feeling like shit. That cell phone was the most valuable thing I had. It had the only picture of my sister on it. Lord, please help me. I really didn't know if I could ever find my big sister without it. Carlos. The office wing of Criminal Investigation Unit 4 looked like a small warehouse that hadn't been organized in forever. It was crowded and messy in the first place. Then almost every desk had stacks of files that were at least 20 centimeters tall, as well as all kinds of evidence and other random items. I stood up straight and gave a salute. Oh, look at how cute he is! I knew he'd be a redhead because he was fighting for justice. Chang Jung-min reporting for duty at Unit 4. There were only 2 other people there besides me. One of them was wiping down his rifle. He looked at me with a strange examining look on his face. The other one had dark circles around his eyes, which made him look like he hadn't slept for days. He was looking over some files. Judging from his seat, this must be the infamous lieutenant of Unit 4, Kang Bakya. Lieutenant Kang gave me a glance with a half-smoked cigarette in his mouth. Then he mumbled, "You, over there." I followed the direction of his look and saw the desk that he seemed to be referring to. Many old bags from McDonald's were stacked atop it, all filled with leftovers and trash. It was also directly opposite the bathroom, facing it. It was okay, as long as I had somewhere to sit. I was about to ask Lieutenant Kang what I should do next when the phone on his desk rang. He took the call, put down the phone, and announced to us that there was a gang-related hostage situation 2 blocks from the station. I never thought my opportunity to defend justice would arrive so soon. Lieutenant Kang put out his cigarette in an ashtray and stood up. I followed him. He grabbed his coat and asked, "Hey, new guy, have you got your gun?" "My gun? No, not yet." "Then where do you think you're going?" "Stay by the phone. Take notes if anything comes up. Don't speak too much." I can still help without a gun. As a policeman, I swore to defend justice, to prevent all offenses against people and property. Justice? Lieutenant Kang burst into laughter before I could finish my sentence. "You think justice is going to block a bullet from hitting you? Well, kid, I've seen plenty of idiots like you. In my unit, there is only one rule you need to remember at all times, which is to follow the orders." That wasn't what I meant at all. I was just trying to help. First day on the job, and I was already having such a misunderstanding with my lieutenant. But before I could explain myself, Lieutenant Kang continued. "If you have a problem with staying by the phone, you could just go home. And don't bother coming back tomorrow either. I'll let the old man know." After they left, I sat down in my seat opposite the bathroom. As my nose was catching glimpses of the faint smell, I let out a defeated sigh. When I had been in the police academy, people would always have an understanding smile on their face whenever Unit 4 was brought up. Everyone had heard all sorts of rumors about this place. Lieutenant Kang was the infamous dictator of the Criminal Investigation Department. Everyone must follow his orders without question. He had a peculiar personality, and he was extremely rough and cruel, even with criminals. Besides, Lieutenant Kang was a lot younger than the other unit's lieutenants. Therefore, many people speculated that Lieutenant Kang had only gotten his position because of nepotism. As a result, no rookies ever wanted to join Unit 4. As for the unit that everyone dreamt of getting into, that would have to be Unit 1. Unit 1 had over 30 officers, and it was widely considered to be the best unit in the department. Yet, here I was, assigned to Unit 4. I was sulking when the phone rang again. There was another hostage case in Bepyeong-dong. Since no one in Unit 4 was available, I suppose this was my time to shine. I hurried to the scene in 10 minutes. It was a 10-story apartment building. I could vaguely see 2 people on the ledge of the rooftop. People told me that there was a married couple. The husband had borrowed too much money from loan sharks and couldn't pay them back. That was why he wanted to jump off the building, and he had forced his wife up there with him. Well, let's see how I, Chang Jong-min, would brilliantly solve this crisis. One of his feet was already at the edge of the ledge. He was holding a knife against the frightened wife's neck. I walked over there. "Stop! I'm telling you to stop!" He got riled up. His right foot missed the ledge. He fell over the edge and dragged his wife with him. "Wait, no!" Before I even had a chance to talk him down, both of them disappeared out of my sight. It was a terrible scene at the bottom of the building. Even though I was 10 floors above ground, I felt like I could still smell the blood. It almost made me sick. I stood there in shock. For the first time, I finally recognized what it felt like to be a real policeman. Oh God. What the hell have I done? Could I be any more stupid? Please, Buddha. Please, let me have another chance, please. Chang Jungmin. Alright, well, I'm gonna go ahead and end this episode here for today. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you want to see more videos from me, then don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.